From Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day market and charts recap. Well, it was a little bit of a kind of. I heard people talking about this earlier too, or using the same term, but it did feel a little bit like a sleepy Monday type of day. It was kind of quiet. The averages kind of started down a little bit on the day, but there was a nice little rebound today. But again, it just kind of felt like a little bit of a quiet day. But overall, being that we've got the CPI report tomorrow, and a lot of people, I guess, fixated on that. It did seem like there was some nice little trading opportunities for the day. I thought it was not a bad trading day personally. Risk disclaimer in front of you: everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. And also, just one quick note, if I can here. Make sure that you are signed up if you are interested in kind of just seeing how we develop our weekly watch list, which had a really good week last week. I ended up taking multiple amount of those trades, from last week, and you could go. I tweeted this out last week, but not only do you get that, but you will get things like let's see if I can find this. You will get our midday note, which covers, a lot of themes. Here's how this worked last week. Notice the trades that are in blue that I took. Broadcom had a good week. NVIDIA had a good week. Dell had a good week. CME, Palantir. Again, this was last week's watch list. So if you want to see what we're doing for this week, make sure that you go ahead and go to tribecatradegroup.com, and you can sign up there just putting in your email address. Again, like I said, that's nice to see the end of day recap and see positions in our watch list. But the midday note, which you will get access to both by putting in the email address. So again, just quick side note. Overall, I don't think if you look at the indices, they didn't really move that much today. Again, a nice little move from the lows. So there was a bit of a trading opportunity. I think overall this looks fine, and I don't mind a little bit of digestion too, whether or not it's after an event or before an event. Here's where we are sitting for the S&P. We're sitting above the value area. For Qs, it's kind of the same. This has been happening a lot, where the Qs and the S&P kind of look the same in terms of value areas. So both of these are above, meaning like either they're both above the value area or both below the value area. And we get a new value area every Monday, which is based on last week's price action in terms of the 1 hour chart, right? So it gives you a short-term look, right? The level down here of support is 374.26. If you want one for SPY, right, it is down at basically 438, you could call it. That's your support level. So as long as we're above the value area for the week, right, the trend continues, right? It goes on, right? One other thing to note, which I saw this observation over the weekend, is that the SPY is, for the first time in a few months, right? And again, you kind of have to focus in here and just know how to read the charts with the value areas. But it's the first time since July that we've been above a value area. So notice, we're above the value area for the month. Look at last month, right? We barely even got into the value area and then kind of got rejected. September, we started just briefly above the value area and then got rejected there and spent a good portion inside and then below the value area, right? And then going back to August, same thing. We basically started inside the value area. So this is different, right? And here's where we were in July. And, notice if you go back, June was also above the value area. And you're in price discovery, right? You're not in a range anymore, right? You are now, moving above a range. So that's what we have right now. Of course, the picture could change, but that's what we've got. I'll talk briefly about bonds here, right? I've been talking a lot about bonds, but overall, my opinion is I just don't want to see bond volatility pick up. I don't mind if we go a little bit up or go a little bit down. I really don't want to see us breach 86.34. If that happens, then we have more of a macro picture on our hands. Right now, of course, we've got a lot of events this week, much more than last week, where we really didn't have too many too many events, and there's a lot of Fed speakers. What they're going to talk about, I don't know. I won't get into that. But I think the CPI and the PPI report will be kind of interesting for tomorrow, right? And it'll be interesting to see if that has any impact, right, on if we do get more macro. So things that I tend to watch are the dollar and what bonds are doing on some of the key economic reports that come out, such as CPI and PPI. Really, I want to see if there's any change in tone in both the bond market and in what the dollar is doing. So I'll be watching those, and if they don't move that much, then we can go back to kind of more of a stock pickers market, which I think it is right now. So they are looking for, while I have this up, they're looking for a lower number, 0.1, right? And ex food and energy is 0.3. It's probably because I think everybody's been noticing that energy prices have been coming down. So when you strip out ex food and energy, the inflation is still 0.3, but with it included, they're only looking for a 0.1. So that's what they're expecting for tomorrow. We'll see what we get. And then obviously the next day we get the PPI report. So I mentioned SPY and Qs. IWM, I think, is going to be interesting tomorrow. Right? Because again, we're talking about not so much the trend here, but we're talking about what could move the most. So if that number, so I always run through like a little bit of a scenario analysis when we have an event like this. For example, I begin to kind of think about, what could really move. I think if the inflation report comes in lighter than expected, you could see a nice rally in small caps, right? These have been kind of held down by interest rates. So again, I'm thinking that if the inflation is down, right, then you might see a little bit of a rally in bonds, right? And that might help the small caps out a bit, right? So that's what I would be paying attention to. That's my thought. And I did put on a little bit of a trade, a short-term catalyst type trade, binary type option trade, so that if the inflation report comes in muted, right, I think that you may see some rotation, right? I think you'll see some rotation out of some of the, as they call them, the Magnificent Seven, right? People have been kind of hiding out in some of these companies. So, these types of economic reports could cause some type of rotation. Could is the key word, right? And that's why you can put on an option trade or something like that for a catalyst type trade. But that report comes out at 8:30, and again, it's important to kind of think about, right? Go through different scenarios. Now, of course, if the inflation report comes in higher than expected, then you could see a little bit of volatility overall, right? If it comes in much higher than expected, and then you might see small caps underperform again, right? So just some food for thought. Also, the 1 hour chart looks much different, right? For S&P and for the Qs, price was above, right? Here, we're just inside the value area. So again, this has been the case all year long, where the IWM looks much different than the other two indices. So this is inside value. And yeah, if you really want to, if you want to take a shot at some type of rotation, you can go long this versus 168.32. We break that level, and I wouldn't want any part. Not that I want any part of IWM right now. Again, I mentioned a small option trade. I don't really have anything else in terms of exposure to that. Let's go through some individual chart names, and first of all, sectors that outperformed today. Again, a little bit different. You actually had like solar and biotech, which have been two really beaten up areas. Those outperformed a little bit, and yeah, we did break the streak. I think Qs were up 18 Mondays in a row. They did finish down, so that streak is over with. And it's kind of interesting that IWM, even small outperformance, but it did actually finish in the green today. What I saw today was a lot of inside candles for some bigger names, and I'll go through a couple of these charts with you. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with names that had a big move. Like Adobe had a big move on Friday. Notice how today's candle all inside of that Friday's candle. So again, no change. That indicates no change in trend and a little bit of digestion. Right, Microsoft too. Microsoft had this huge day on Friday, out to new highs, and a little bit of digestion, right? Which gives you, in my opinion, like if you really like these names and you want to get involved in the names, I think it's better to get involved on a day of digestion than chasing close to the highs. But this could also digest for a couple days. This has been on such a nice run. The Microsoft. But if you go through some other names, I just saw this in a lot of places, right? Broadcom, right? huge candle on Friday. I'm in this trade. I did take off some exposure on that nice move, that nice breakout on Friday, and that had a little bit of digestion today, down 1.1%. Right, and some of these names were down. They started the day like down 2%. I think if we go back to Adobe, this was a setup that I was talking about in the room. I said, hey, because we were talking about Adobe on Friday. And look at how it held the lows, held the bottom of value quite nicely, right? This was a nice little scalp trade if you tried that. Amazon, another one, inside day. All right. A little bit, yeah, I guess it still qualifies, but not clean, maybe not as clean as some of the other charts that I meant. That I like the breakouts to new highs. Amazon hasn't done that quite yet. CPRT, which is outside of tech, also had a bit of an inside day too. Now this name reports earnings this week, but it's funny how this name really got going. This is an auto name, and it's been kind of going sideways for a bit, but really popped on Friday. So digestion there. A couple names, and I took some profits in some names. Some things really worked out quickly on the short term. Hilton was a nice trade for me. I took profits in this one. I day traded Caterpillar today. Again, I'm starting to look for some other areas, but this Caterpillar still, the chart isn't setting up for a swing trade for me. So I traded this kind of quickly today, move out of value, small winner for me, but that's fine too on a day like this. I was impressed with a couple names like DraftKings. Watch this top of value tomorrow. Notice a lot of names, they stopped right at the top of the value area. That's 35.82. They have, I believe they have an investor day tomorrow, but overall nice action. Right. Remember that this took out a VPOC. This digestion after taking out a virgin point of control is quite normal. And that's what you have here. Uber had a nice continuation as well. This could be setting up as a potential market leader. Got through this virgin point of control, which I think is impressive, right? To get through some overhead supply and continuing higher. A couple names that I'm focused on for tomorrow. I want to see how the home builders, what they do. They're also consolidating quite nicely in here. We don't know which way they're going to break. I try to mention this whenever I can, but look at how thin the value area is for this week. Usually that means a big move is coming. Now, it's not always to the upside. So you have to kind of set alerts on both sides, right? So I would put an alert right around 82.50. I would also put an alert on right around 81.50. Usually when you have this tight price action, and it's nice to find these either for me on the daily chart or the 1 hour chart, but usually a decent move is coming. So again, that will probably be dictated by what interest rates and watching TLT does this week. But so far, it's hanging around this virgin point of control, right? And we'll probably need some new buyers to kind of come in and maybe push this name out to new highs. So that's about it. I'm just keeping the beginning video end of day market recap kind of short tonight. I think there'll be a lot more interesting moves, but like I said, overall today, this was not bad. In terms of the price action, I thought it gave some trading opportunities for things to kind of open up on the lows and to churn a little bit higher until middle of the day. And like I said to members, I said right around like 2:30 we kind of ripped a little bit, and I said, hey, this is a great opportunity to kind of lighten up before, if you want to, right, into some big data that's coming out this week. All right, guys, that's it for today's recap. Have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow.